Well, some say it was a chaotic end to the 2018 Indiana General Assembly. Now the governor has called for a special session in May for some perspective on some of those unresolved issues and big takeaways, perhaps missed opportunities from this session. Let's turn now to national site selection firm KSM Location Advisors, CEO Tim Cook, and President Katie Culp for our Eye on Economic Development segment. And welcome, as always, to the program.
Hi, Gary.
It was a crazy ending to the session, and a number of things did not get done. But as you look at this non-budget writing session, I'll start with you, Tim. Big takeaways.
I thought the big takeaway was the software as a service being exempted from sales tax. That's something that Indiana has been grappling with for several years now. It eliminated a lot of the confusion, and I think because there's so much focus with tech right now, that was a big one for the tech community.
Yeah, and there was some back and forth on the language of that bill, and I think ultimately it passed with the kind of language that the tech community wanted.
It was really good because they had a nice collaboration between government, the Department of Revenue, the tech community. The chamber was very involved in it, and I think it was a win-win for everybody.
Katie, how about you? Big takeaways.
You know, something that garnered a lot of national headlines was this Sunday alcohol sale. And leave it to me to bring that up. But I think it was great because we've had a number of clients who come to town and are like, are you kidding me? This was still a rule. I'd say on the downside, it did garner national headlines, and it pointed out to people who maybe didn't know that that had been a rule still on the books.
Right.
But hey, we made it over the hill there.
Over the top. And you know, it was viewed as a consumer issue, certainly, but do you think it has the potential to be somewhat of an economic development issue, maybe for what you suggest as that national attention it got?
I think it certainly helps us appear less backwards socially, and so I think everything that we can do to kind of position ourselves as forward-thinking and not so conservative is a good thing, especially as it relates to attracting tech workers and employers.
I want to get your perspectives on workforce. Certainly it's a big agenda item for Governor Holcomb, the state chamber. Everybody's talking about workforce. Tim, start with you. Two bills did make it out. Your take, did these workforce measures, do you think, get to the heart of the challenges Indiana's facing?
I think they set the table for some of those challenges. Obviously, it was a non-budget year, and so a lot of the spending that needs to happen and needs to be approved, that will happen next year. I'm hopeful that this is the start of some real redevelopment of what we're doing with workforce and training and talent.
Katie, as you look at the workforce issue, it's such a big issue that everybody, again, is talking about. It probably is going to take more than one session, and certainly, as you say, a budget writing session to get it done. Your take on the two bills that made it through?
You know, I think there's a difference between being busy and being productive, and there's been a lot of discussion and a lot of interest in workforce development, and I really applaud the governor and his team for making it a focal point, and I'm glad that they're being thoughtful about it and not rushing into a solution that might not be the right one. With that said, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. There are still a lot of silos in workforce development in Indiana, and it can be so effective if done correctly, and so I'm excited to see this next legislative session, not the short session here, but next year, see what happens with that issue.
And you think it's got the legislature's attention, maybe?
I feel like it's something everybody can get behind. Don't you agree? I mean, both sides of the table, everybody wants to invest in our workforce and people that have transferable skills and that can help make us more attractive for economic development. How that's implemented gets, you know, kind of viewed through different prisms.
Yeah, and I think one of the keys is what kind of training makes sense for different types of sectors. If you're a manufacturing company, your training needs are different than a tech company. And so as they're making changes to the programs, it's really important to keep that in mind as well.
Mentioned the chaotic end to the session late on a Wednesday night. A number of things did not get done, if you will, before the midnight deadline. Governor Holcomb, indeed, after several days, did call a special session for May. Some folks have criticized that. A lot of people support it. Your take? Yeah,
I think you can talk about the process of how we got there, but there was no doubt they had to come back that they need to come back for a special session. The federal tax reform is going to have a huge impact on the economy, and if Indiana's tax code was out of sync with the federal changes, then that would have been a disaster.
Katie, do you anticipate, certainly this tax issue will be one area of focus to be sure. Other people have talked about the Muncie schools situation. There are a couple of other issues as well undone. And folks are saying this needs to be a focused session, a very brief, just get what needs to be done and get it done and move on.
I agree. It's a short session. We've got to be laser focused on these tax issues. It's indisputable that we're a leader when it comes to cost of doing business and our corporate tax climate. So for us not to be responsible about this and fix anything that needs to be straightened up would be a really bad move for our economic development future.
Yeah. Also, in this session, Indiana did not pass, the legislature did not pass hate crime legislation. Indiana remains one of, I think, 5 states that does not have special laws for hate crime. Reaction?
You know, I live in Zionsville that tends to be a little conservative, and a lot of my neighbors, we talk about this type of thing, and there are different views on the issue, but the bottom line, economic development impact is that employers, the Amazons of the world, they are looking at these issues. And when Tim and I get involved in some of these national site selection assignments, one of the first questions now, which is much different than 5 or 10 years ago, is having us take a look at what the social issues, what the social political climate is in different states and metro areas, and this is inevitable that it will rise to the top of the issue when someone's looking at Indiana. So hopefully next year we could maybe tackle this in a more proactive and effective manner.
Yeah, the thing is, any issue that impacts if a company site selects at a certain location or if a individual wants to live here and work here, anything that impacts those decisions, those are economic development issues. And so I think the sooner that we focus on that, in addition to tax climate and business climate, I think it's going to make Indiana even more competitive.
So you think, and they're a little perhaps more difficult to define, but those culture issues, you view them as important issues, the issues that the Statehouse should take a look at?
They're tricky issues, but it's, as Katie mentioned, it's what our clients are talking about, and it's how companies make decisions nowadays.
All right. Well, it was a crazy session, certainly at the end of the 2018 Indiana General Assembly. We've got more coming up with a special session. Tim Cook, Katie Culp, KSM Location Advisors. As always, great perspective. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, Gary.
All right. And I'll be right back after this.